Greetings, Questers. We're going to go into the next tutorial, which is about some of the map details and being able to set up things like a grid and being able to set up some of the properties that a map contains. So under here, you'll see this map settings menu item. And this menu item will give you a number of options. One is the grid, which will allow you to enable it, which when you toggle this, it will instantly turn it on. And it will also show you the number of pixels it uses to render the grid and how big each square is going to be. We do plan on having other grid types in the future, but this is what we have for now. You can also include an offset so that if an image has a grid that is not particularly perfect, you can try to offset it and figure it out. Underneath it is the color of the grid itself, and then the width of the grid as well. We'll get into scale and fog of war options and token settings in a moment. So we'll turn on the grid, and you'll see instantly it created the grid for me, and if I zoom in, you can see the details. And since I already know what the value here of this is, I will simply change it. I believe it's about 128 pixels. And I'll simply hit save, and you'll see it lines up perfectly on this grid. I'll close this, and then you can see the grid itself. Now, something that's useful if you have a map that already has grid lines built into it, you can actually take the line color here and you can actually just turn it to transparent, hit save, and it'll go away, and it will match. You know that behind the scenes it will match the same grid size, and it's useful if you want to make sure that the grid lines don't stand out way too much. You can also make them incredibly bright. You can change the color. I'll hit save, and now you have bright green lines that are very easy to see. The next option that you'll see here is the scale. And this is for calculating distance and things of that nature. Currently, if you're using a 1 square scale, when you are moving tokens, it'll show you the distance between the start point and the end point and how many squares that's going to be, and then the calculation that it uses to determine what that is. Flat is a simple, you move squares. Even if you move diagonally, it will simply count the squares between them. Double every other is for games like D&D 3.5 and 3rd edition, that or even Pathfinder, that uses a calculation that will require you to every other diagonal movement will count 1 extra. Then exact is for maps that don't use a grid system. You can actually turn this on so that it gives you exact distances between the two, but it's still based on this scale itself. So if you set 1 unit or 1 essential square is 1 meter, it will set it so that it will display exactly 1 meter, but it will also show you fractions of the distance as well, so that could be useful for things like wargaming or other style of games that you want to play. We are going to turn this ugly green color off and make it so that we don't see the grid. Now the next thing is fog of war. Fog of war is probably one of the most useful tools when you are trying to run a game for players, as the players will only be able to see what is inside of their fog of war. So if we simply enable it, you'll immediately see how it hid the whole map. And then you can simply take different options here. I can increase the opacity. If I increase this all the way to 1 and hit save, you'll see this is exactly what the players currently see. If I change this back to 0.65, which is a good number, about 65% opacity, it sees this. You can also change the player opacity if you so choose to make it less than 1. Sometimes there might be options that will be useful. So that being said, the final option here is movement lines, and movement lines is all about when you are moving your tokens, you have a line that drags behind them so that people can see where your token has moved from and where it is moving to. That gives them the option to, it betters play for play-by-post style games. You can turn this on and off per map as you wish. And that's the details of maps itself. Thanks for stopping by, and keep questing.